Okay, so we can start.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, all right. So good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Just Being Center for Mindfulness and Presence, I warmly welcome you to this live Q&A session. Thank you again for joining us this evening. My name is Zinia, and I'm a counselor and an alumnus of the presence-oriented psychotherapy course that we will be speaking about today. I'm delighted to be here with our founder and director, Sandy Andrade, who will be answering key questions pertaining to the 2-year postgraduate diploma course in presence oriented psychotherapy, integrating mindfulness, compassion, and wisdom, a non dual approach. This program is offered in academic collaboration with St. Mira's College, Pune. Before we begin, I would like to introduce Sandy. Sandy Andrade is a mindfulness and presence-oriented psychotherapist specializing in trauma and attachment resolution. She has vast experience in this field of mindfulness and psychotherapy. She's also the developer of the presence-oriented psychotherapy approach, and she's also our teacher at the course. Um, in this live session, we will go through some of the key questions, as I was mentioning earlier, related to the course, and Sandy will be responding with her insights. We also welcome your questions, the people who are watching us. So please feel free to type in your questions in the chat box at any time, and our team member Gayatri will be passing the questions on to us. Welcome, Sandy. And
Yeah, thank you, Zinia.
so we can begin. I can maybe just start by asking you the first question, which is what inspired you to develop this course? Why presence-oriented psychotherapy and why now?
Yeah, we've been offering this course for, I think, almost now 9 years. Um, and uh, and it was really put together a long time ago, and it was in the making much before that as well. And I think uh, what drew me to kind of put the course together is one is my own quest with integrating the wisdom traditions in psychotherapy. Um, because of my own practices of at, at that time a strong practice in Vipassana, which is very body based. And I was seeing a lot of benefits of that for myself and wanted to bring that into the therapy. And I also found that there were many such initiatives around the world, um, not so much here, but around the world in terms of integrating these spaces in mainstream psychotherapy. And what we get from Western psychotherapy is also quite important. It's an important piece that comes in along with you know along with the wisdom traditions. So having both pieces felt important. But in my own training, and I started to train in many different approaches. So in my own training, I would say that, okay, from a presence oriented point of view, which means from a very receptive, um, where there is a lot of allowing, a lot of listening, a lot of embodiment. From that kind of stance, I was really seeing in terms of, so there were specializations, like I said, in mindfulness, there were specializations from a cognitive point of view, from integrating from an energetic point of view, from a somatic point of view, from a trauma lens. And so if one was really interested in this whole realm like I was, um, was it possible to kind of bring all these elements together under one roof? And I think that is what the presence oriented psychotherapy course does. It brings together all these supposedly varied threads under one roof. So you have the somatic, you have the mindfulness piece that really comes from Buddhist psychology. So you have that philosophical piece coming in. You have you have the attachment work and so really looking at attachment patterns, looking at the relational field, and uh, and then the energetic pieces, the subtle body, the somatic pieces, and the trauma informed pieces. So all of that kind of like comes in a very, I would think, in a very um, integrated way. So 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 what this does then is that it offers the possibility that the presence oriented psychotherapy course, it can be used in conjunction with any other modality, and it takes it deeper, and it can be also practiced as an approach in and by itself. Because from a presence point of view, then it really holds all of our experiences, the whole gamut of being human, right? And and it goes beyond that in terms of to really touch into the deepest, maybe wisest, the um, sense of self. And whenever someone touches into that or even has a flavor of that, it really feels like, okay, arrived, come home, all's well. And I think that's the center stage of the therapeutic approach.
Thank you for sharing that, Sandy. And I was able to go back to my training as well and just pick on, I was able to think about some of the things that you shared about how it's bringing in so much together. And also the word integrating everything in a whole way, that also really stood out to me. Yeah, so thank you for sharing about the approach and what inspired you, your journey of wanting to integrate wisdom traditions with psychotherapy. Moving on to the next question. The question that we often get asked is that who is this course for? And do people need to have a psychology background or mindfulness background to be able to join this course?
Well, it is an advanced diploma. Like you said, that we offer it in conjunction with St. Mira's College, Pune.
Yeah.
And so it is an advanced diploma. So it is assuming that the people coming into the course already have some base and some training and some background.
Mhm.
So at a practical level or at, from psychological point of view so you do need a psychology background or a social work background in clinical work that can really help to support, because then we just deep dive into the therapeutic aspects of things. Um, of course, we also run the other 1 year course, which is really open to people from all backgrounds. So if people have done that 1 year, it gives them at least the base to kind of enter into the second year and go deeper with the therapeutic aspects. So yeah, but you do need some kind of like background, and it is better for already those practicing. So they add this kind of dimension of presence to their practice. Whether you need to already be familiar with mindfulness, maybe not, because we do follow a particular stance to the practice. We do have a particular way of practicing. One is it is very body based, the mindfulness practice, um, and uh, and so the training is really to be with the feeling sensation in the body. So so even those with exposed or have experience with other forms of meditation, then they need to come back to this kind of base practice of uh, being embodied, um, and being able to recognize over a period of time this sense of awareness that accompanies all of our experiences.
Thank you for that. And in the context of psychotherapy, what does non-dual approach mean? Is another question, and how is it different from other modalities?
Yeah, so um, at a very maybe simple level, a non-dual approach in psychotherapy, one is, we base it on the whole course is based on five principles. One of that is wholeness.
Mm.
And so this base of the sense of wholeness, irrespective of what our experiences are. So, in some way, it kind of includes the whole. But of course, while we call it non dual, um, that's the intentionality of the course.
Mm.
Um, we aren't promising that we really reach that state of consciousness that is non dual, because that's, and so So it just means that there is an orientation which is more fuller, it's more inclusive, it's non-preferential, and there is the resting very deeply in awareness that we cultivate through the practice, this sense of beingness that we come into. So the whole therapeutic stance, even when we are with another person, uh, the whole therapeutic stance is that the therapy is more from a sense of being,
Mm.
that's more closer to this non-dual stance. So from the sense of being, um, and and what the practitioner learns to recognize first for themselves is the sense of beingness from which they can then come into this relational space with the other, and both the therapist and client are both in that held in that field. So there is that larger holding, there is a larger sense of wholeness. So there are shifts that happen at a perceptual level, at a cognitive level, at an energetic level, and at the level of the depth of our awareness.
Thank you for that, Cindy. Yeah. And the next question is that what can participants expect to experience over the 2 years of the program? And if you could speak a little bit about some of the themes that participants will be introduced to.
Yeah.
This is something that you've touched upon before as well, but yeah.
Yeah. So while the whole title of this course, like integrating mindfulness, compassion, wisdom, a non-dual approach, those are all these aspects that through the 2 years, the the nuances of that begin to unfold. And maybe at the end of the 2 years, we may come into some kind of flavor of the work. But this process and this kind of journeying together that we are doing, and it is together, so it is not really teaching or, in a didactic way, but it is more in terms of gathering, it is more in terms of this collective shared space that we go step by step with each module.
Hmm.
So the course really looks at three important aspects: the therapist presence, the presence in the relational field, and how to support the client coming into presence. So in the first module, we are really looking at that base of establishing that base. Like I said, if we are taking the stance of coming into being, then we encounter how our mind and our heart as a practitioner also, that it can get so scattered, it can get into very much kind of doing energy when we are with a client, we can get triggered. So a lot of the practice in the first module is really coming back to this base, like I said, the base of the body, the ground. And so the mindfulness of the practitioner, the groundedness of the practitioner. So we are really setting that base. And in fact, that is the most powerful base, because if we can reside in that, then spontaneously there are a lot of shifts that start to happen in the therapeutic alliance and for the client and for the client's process. So then we build on it. So each module is building on the previous one. So then we build on it in terms of looking at attachment patterns, and definitely secure attachment, and really as as coming into this sense of secure attachment, looking at regulation, co-regulation in the relational space. So a lot of emphasis on really looking at that relational space, looking at self-compassion and compassionate practices. And then we deepen that with a retreat, which is more for the practitioner of really coming into mindfulness practice, really having that as not just something you do with the client in that session, but something you have for yourself as a way of being and as a way of living and as a way of knowing. Uh, so that integration for the therapist, which is an ongoing aspect, so that starts to, be cement that a bit in the next module. And then we look at also how we encounter uh, what um, what may really kind of be there as these protective paths that show up, and how do we meet these paths that show up? How can this inner relationship be built, an inner harmonious relationship? And how can we support the client in terms of coming into presence? And many ways in which we can do that. So we are also learning many, many different tools, because for each client, it will be different of how you approach them and what they might need in that moment. So the course equips the participants with really having all of these kind of tools in the background, but also being able to not operate from the tools and the techniques, but to really operate from this kind of relating to the client in a moment to moment way with whatever is encountered. And that unfolding process, actually, that's the presence oriented approach, which then in the second year we kind of look at more nuances of, let's say, when trauma imprints show up.
Mhm.
How do we support that? How do we support that somatically? How do we understand the physiology? And how do we support the physiology, both our own and that of the client? So, how do we integrate that piece within the therapeutic approach? And then we look at the subtle body. And then there's another retreat that kind of deepens that, being more embodied, being more attuned in the subtle body. Uh, and and our last module is really about integrating the whole piece and really resting in ourselves even more as we are with the client and in the therapeutic space. So, and throughout this whole, um, journey is the development of um, perceptual skills, is the deepening of practice for the practitioner, um, and also when I say perceptual skills, because a lot of it is also dependent on attunement and the level at which we can attune to the client, and also work in resonance in the resonant field with whatever is arising for the client that we can sense and feel. And so the therapist really learns to come into their own grounded presence and offer that as support. And so the client system can also uh, attune to that, and um, and the client can also come into their own presence. So many ways to support it, and those many ways are kind of explored in the 2-year course.
Yeah, you put it so beautifully about how it is about creating that base, and it's an ongoing process, and step by step with each module, there is a kind of deepening that happens, and also some having the tools, but also approaching from a non-dual stance, like also like just holding back and just really staying in the grounded presence. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Sandy. We can move to the next question. Yeah. So, can you tell us about the structure of the course, the format, the duration, and the requirements for course completion?
Yeah, so I think I already touched into the structure, which is, but just as an overall, I touched into the themes of each module. But the structure is it's over 2 years. And each module is about 5 days. The retreat is about 7 days. And there are about 2 months between each module. So there's enough time to kind of, you know, dive into this kind of experiential sense of what we are learning during the module. And after that, there is the coursework and the assignments to support the learning.
Hmm.
So we do that in a variety of ways in terms of there can be peer exchanges, there can be the applications to client sessions, the documentations of that, the feedback on that, um, the a few essays that we write, but more from a point of view of an exploration from how do we experience this, you know, how is this concept lived, what is that lived experience of it? And that's the learning that we really explore around the conceptual understanding. And so this is the way it goes. In the second year, we also have more of the individual supervision. The group supervisions happen even in the first year. And also, people are encouraged to have their own therapeutic processes with their own therapy sessions. Because really, this is deep work that we are getting into deep waters. And there is a lot that can come up even for the practitioner. So there is the support and the holding that is needed both in the course and even outside the course. And so a lot of that is also in the peer exchanges that happen. So all these are the requirements, and people are required to move through it because it is designed, everything is designed to support the learning.
Mm.
So those are the course requirements. And then later on, we also have a component of just looking at, what is the intersection of if how do I want to take this work into the world and what is there in the world? And so there's a little research project, which is just an exploration again from a presence point of view of really looking at it from an inquiry based method. Um, and that's also just an exploration for the student to really find their own ground.
Mm. Thanks, Sandy. So we can pause and take audience questions also at this point.
Yeah.
Sumita is asking that I'll just read out the question: how to know that therapist is attuned and resonates with client's journey and their self? How to know that therapist is attuned and resonates with client's journey with their self?
Yeah. So, like I said, the the whole practice is that of being embodied. So, being really in touch with um, what's the feeling sensation, what's happening in the body as well as in the mind as you are with the client. So, really holding that awareness as you're very attentive to the client, but there is also attention on what is happening within oneself. And so, this is in a very moment to moment way. And sometimes when we are very deeply attuned, when we are listening to the client, especially when we are really connected to the client's inner experience and at a feeling level, we feel with the client and we have a sense of it in the body. So our body gives us the cue of the sense of attunement, the sense of resonance, and how can we support it by giving that space within ourselves, right? That we don't get contracted with the client's experience of feeling contracted. That we can remain open and spacious and be in touch with those underlying feelings and that imprint and whatever it is bringing up and hold that with safety and care.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, we can move on to the next question. How might this course shift the way someone shows up as a therapist or a person?
Yeah, so I think um, the inner work of the therapist is very much related to also then how it shows up in the outer world. What the outer world, when I say the outer world, are responses in the world, um, and with the situations, the life situations that we are in, with the clients that we are meeting, that also kind of evokes a certain inner response. So it is really a movement back and forth, right? And so I think what happens over a period of time is we become very familiar with navigating this this dance between our inner and outer experiences and being able to show up more fully for ourselves and for others. Um, so I would say there are more openings that happen. The journey is, um, you know, we know that with such openings, it's not always like a smooth kind of path. But we also then learn to what are our own resources, how do we navigate that, and in that inner learning, then we also really come into a certain trust and faith in the process and even in the client's process. I
Hmm.
think that's the only way. You otherwise you can't read from books or from philosophies and then start to apply it to clients. But when you have an inner experience of what that is like, what it is like to sit with, so this is so often used, no? Sit with this feeling. What does that mean?
Hmm. Hmm.
What does that mean to be with the feeling, to allow the feeling?
Yeah.
What does that look like, right? So to have that inner experience of that, because you're going on doing it, right? And then that kind of translates. So you can the sense of empathy or the sense of compassion for the other, whether it is the client or the other, that also increases because you know how challenging it can be
Yes.
and how much support it might need
Hmm.
and how resourcing it is
Hmm.
to have another
Hmm.
who's grounded, because that's the experience when we're doing peer exchanges, that you have the resource of your partner who is grounded and uh, really present with you in that process. Yeah. So there is a lot of that inner learning, and I think that uh, maybe what I've heard from alumni is that it really changes, shifts also who they are. It doesn't get restricted to just the therapeutic space. It just touches all parts of their lives because it would.
Yeah, for sure. Yes. So, Sandy, there's another question from someone from the audience. Yeah. So there is a question that acting as a sponge for others' emotions, does it drain you?
Yeah. So that's also an interesting question in the research that is, really happening between what is a sense of empathy and compassion, and are they these two different things? And is there something different happening even in the brain and in how we are receiving? And I think there is a difference because here we are not talking about, oh, bring it on and I'm absorbing your feeling.
Hmm.
Uh, I am I am attuned to your feeling because there is no other way of listening to the other without being touched.
Hmm.
And so, if we have to be touched by another's experience, we would feel something, we would feel their feeling. Not in its entirety, not in the intensity that they're feeling, but we feel something within us. Our heart, and that is our heart opening up. Now, Uh, when we talk about this sense of attunement, we are also talking about it from a presence orientation, right? And presence is our more unconditional state of being. And so, from that unconditional state of being, we can receive because there is an underlying sense of okayness, even when things don't feel okay,
Hmm.
even when they feel intense. there is still an underlying okayness that we are in touch with, that we can feel and sense into. Yeah. And so that's the orientation, that's the training of holding both these together.
There's a question that can I become a therapist without having a psychology background?
Well, that will need to be seen, maybe through certifying bodies. Ours is not a certifying body. We are offering this course for for therapists or practitioners already in the field who have already got certified and who want to kind of have this orientation or train in this modality.
Yeah. Yes. The next question is that for someone trained in another kind of therapeutic modality, what do you think this course adds or transforms for them? Um, Although you have spoken a lot about how it is different, and but yeah, the question is.
Yeah. So I think it does enhance because, like I said, it's the orientation, right? So in within that orientation, you can bring to um, any other approach as well. You can, it kind of holds, is able to hold everything. But the moment you bring a mindfulness orientation, you bring a presence orientation, it will change how you're doing things,
Yeah.
right? It will change how you're perceiving the other, and it will change the way you are using that tool or technique, how you're using it with the other. So, yes, there is the integration
Yeah.
that can happen with other approaches. Because if you look at this modality and this approach, then we are looking at the psychodynamic aspect. When we are looking at attachment, we are looking at early patterns, we are looking at the imprints that are there. We are definitely looking at the relational aspects. Then we are also integrating the cognitive aspects, because when we are with something, even at a feeling sensation body, there is an underlying belief also that is running, which also comes forth, right? Uh, so you will have these kind of threads with many different approaches. The arts can also be integrated the expressive arts can also be integrated very easily with this, um, because and in fact, it would go very well with a presence-based approach. Yeah.
Hmm. What kind of inner readiness or curiosity do you think someone needs to bring to this course?
Um, just that curiosity,
Yeah.
just that interest, just a willingness, and yeah, just that, and just as you are.
Hmm.
So you don't have to be something different. You just have to come as you are and encounter yourself as you are. And that's the work. And that's where the work also begins. Yeah.
The last question is that what is your hope for the participants as they join this course and engage in this 2 year long journey? Your
Yeah.
hope for the students.
So with every cohort, it is quite an interesting journey. There is a lot of learning together. There's a lot of deepening together. There's uh, and I learn a lot from the participants who join, because they bring in so much of richness of their experience, of their insight, of their wisdom. And so, really, the hope is both for practitioner as well as our clients, that we come home to ourselves, we come home to the space. And from there, we can encounter whatever there is to encounter in just this living and being in this world.
Yeah, very beautifully put. Just the hope of like coming to home to ourselves. So, yeah, these were the questions, Sandy, and thank you so much.
Yes. And thank you so much, Xenia. And yeah, always a pleasure to talk about the course, and looking forward to this year's cohort as well. Uh, each time there is, a different energy, and so looking forward to uh, what comes together this time and who comes together this time. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
very
right.
excited. Thank you, Sandy.
Okay.
Much.
All right. Yeah.